Welcome, everybody. I have a special guest with me today, Kristy. Kristy is going to join us and she's going to share. Well, she did an 8-month coaching journey and she's going to share everything she's learned, all her golden nuggets, all the little hurdles she had to get over, what made this different. And she's going to tell you all about the success that she's had. And so let us know if you're here watching this with us, at the time this is being played, or if you're watching this at a later time. But always give a shout out to the women that we have on here who are so open and willing to kind of share their story. So, Kristy, welcome.
Thank
Um,
you.
can we start off with maybe just like introducing yourself? Like, who are you?
That's a great question. So I'm Kristy. I am a mom of two. I am an office manager at the Heritage Group, and I struggled with weight most of my teenage and adult years. I've always really wanted to be healthy, and so the last 8 months has been just this wonderful opportunity to completely work on that. And I've become a runner, and I've become I lift weights now, and I finally feel like I can say I am someone who is healthy. So that's a bit about me.
Yeah, we're gonna pause on that one and come back to or circle back to that whole running and weightlifting thing because that's far from where you first started. Um,
Yes.
so I just remember, yeah, we'll get right into it, guys, and you're going to be totally inspired by it because I was in awe of it as well, and I think she was shocked that that was all happening at the same time too. Okay, so let's go back. So. Why did you reach out? Like, what was happening? Why did you feel like you needed coaching? Like, what was going on? What have you tried?
So I've tried two different weight loss programs in the past. The last one that I did, it ended really poorly. I felt really bad about myself. I didn't quite hit my target and I didn't finish the program. So I was super defeated, and I just threw up my hands, and I just had turned to some really unhealthy habits. I had put on the 40 pounds that so I was at one of my heaviest again, but I was also just feeling really low about my overall health. So when I finally reached out, I think I remember our phone call. I just said, I just want to be healthy, because if I keep putting this goal that I feel like I can't reach anymore, I'm not going to be able to become a healthy person. So I was pretty down. There had been a few events that had happened, and I was doing a lot of people pleasing, and there was just a lot of things where I wasn't putting myself first. And I just finally felt ready to try something completely different. And every time I watched some of your videos, I just felt more inspired rather than defeated. So I just was super excited to try something completely different than a weight loss program.
Yeah. So let's go back because the first one that you did have really good success. You did a diet, it was a longer term.
Yes.
You showed that, hey, I'm persistent, I can stay committed. And so you had really great success until you didn't because you got
Yes.
pregnant.
I got pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember at the end of that one, I was like, well, if I'm pregnant, well, then I forget it. So I just ate everything in sight because I was eating for two. And but yes, I had pretty good success with it. And I didn't mind the program overall, but it was very much still that structured piece of, it was just nutrition and pills. And
Shakes.
so by the time it was over, because I was pregnant, so I felt like I was done, then I just went back to eating everything.
Yeah, and then you went back to that same program, but then felt differently about the outcome or how it was feel your experience through it. It didn't feel the same as it did the first time.
Yeah, it was I think it was a slightly different program, and it was a lot more restrictive, a lot more rule based, and very discouraging. Like, so anytime I didn't hit a target, or instead of diving deeper into what was going on, it was just like, well, you have to dig deeper, you have to do better. Like, you, because they were trying to hit a target too. So you could just, it felt very like I was scared to go into the check-in time. It was not like it was, yeah, it was terrible. It was a terrible, terrible time.
So we quickly kind of learned, like, even just on our first chat, we uncovered a little bit about some of the patterns that were kind of getting in the way of those habits or the goals that you had. And then through our coaching, there was this kind of underlying theme that we kind of worked on. So we did work on nutrition, exercise, we did work on stress as well. But there was this whole piece of, like, and you mentioned it, the people pleasing,
Yeah.
the people pleasing, not knowing how to be yourself or who you wanted to be around certain people and stuff, and then that was affecting not only how you felt about yourself and the choices. And I think that that's going to resonate with women. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's so easy, especially as a woman, to jump into doing something anybody else needs but yourself. And whether that's my husband, my kids, friends, family, it, it was just so easy to say, no, I don't need to go for a walk because this person needs this. Or um so I really had to take small steps, I think, to help myself in that way. And I didn't do it in a way where I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. There was no hard boundary line. Like, I did it in a way that worked for me, that I felt safe and like secure in saying like, no, I'm okay, thank you. And just understanding that it was okay for me to say no to
Yeah.
certain things and
We
doing
actually
certain
did it.
things.
We did it like one event at a time. We would troubleshoot
Yeah.
before the event, set the intention or whatever, and then after the event, we'd come back together. How did it go? And so
Yes.
every time we did that, you built up a little bit of your confidence and a little bit of your confidence until then you could tackle what was kind of like the bigger things that
Yes.
were in your way. Then you felt more comfortable doing that. But we did do one event at a time to kind of get to that place.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, it was setting the intentions. And then I really liked the glasses activity, like the just actually sitting and looking and observing it from a different perspective, I think really helped shift even just my own mind to say, oh, some of this isn't like because it's other people, it's me too. Like I need to see it differently.
Yeah, like I think one of the examples is like they're not looking at me, they're not judging at me. So if they're not doing that, they're not talking
Yes.
to me, what are they doing? What am I not seeing when that's the
Yeah.
glasses I put on?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that brings me to the first part because mindset is a big word that gets thrown around. It means something different to everybody. But most people, when they lose weight, which would include your past experience, whether the successful one or the one where you didn't feel as successful, how does mindset fit into all of this? And what did it look like for you? Like, how did it manifest for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was definitely my number one piece. And it was so important for me to work on. It it a lot of it had to do with my self-worth. And yeah, it was a huge piece for me because I the the eating and the exercise almost came easier, but it was then having to dive deeper and to sit and acknowledge, oh wow, I don't love myself or care about myself enough to try, like, or to do something different that is going to lead me to a better place. So doing the workshops with you, doing a lot of journaling, and a lot of times on my walks, I would even just walk around and I started telling myself I'm enough and I'm worth it. And it was just it's been a huge shift because and don't get me wrong, like, I didn't maybe believe it right at the beginning. It wasn't something that switched overnight. I really did. I had to work at it. I had to start, like, the wins. The wins were a huge piece that I think really shifted my mindset. Like, I remember you saying, well, what are the wins for the day? And I'm like, nothing. Nothing is a win today. And then you're like, well, and we started listing them, and you can start to see, oh yeah, like I still got my walk in today. And so instead of being paralyzed with punishment for not doing enough, it was, okay, here's some things that I did today that were great, and let's try and do some more tomorrow.
Yeah, the thing that happened within our coaching is that you're right, like you catastrophized. So, one little thing was now everything was wrong. And even just like when we did the weigh-ins or what have you, it was very much like you got into your head. And so we learned really quickly, like, okay, what is the space we can create between the feeling or the thought and the action? Because you used to eat, and that's how you used to solve your kind of feeling.
Yeah.
And we figured out walking does you really well. That's what it doesn't work for all of my clients or for everyone, but walking was what worked well. And so we'd often, you'd come in and you'd catastrophize, you'd have this thing, and then it'd be like, where's your walk? You'd go for your walk, and then you'd come back. And this is what was beautiful was that you'd then unpack it. Okay, here's the 4 or 5, sometimes it would be like a list or whatever, right? And it was like, okay, now we're starting to make sense of this, what feels like this really big thing. We're now putting it into this little thing over here, and now we can start making sense. And from there, then we can like develop little experiments or what have you to kind of help you
Yeah.
unravel that. So it was like a beautiful thing to see, like, and it wasn't just like a one shot, like it was through our coaching journey. There was, because as soon as you
Mhm.
started to level up, the voice got louder, right? And then you were good at that level, and then you were like, because we worked on maintenance, right? And then that voice came up, and then you went into running, and then it was like, okay, now you're leveling up again, and then the voice creeped up, right? And then we kind of talked through, like, hey, every time you level up, that voice is going to come through, but here's your default is like walking works really well for you, coming back and journaling and doing that works really well for you to kind of, and I
Yeah.
think that was new for you because you've never delved into the thoughts and the feelings to that
Yeah.
level. It was kind of like push it through, push it through. I got 2 kids, I got a busy season, push it through.
Yeah.
And here we are being like, no, we got to pause and unpack that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really love the train metaphor you use about you're standing on the train station, because I so badly just, as you said, push it through. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted and I felt like I was on the train. I was the emotion, I was the feeling. So again, just, yeah, being able to really step back and see that, no, it's coming, and then it goes. And that was a really big help for me too.
Yeah, and it led to really great talks with you and your husband. Your husband, I mean, he was always a support, but your support changed because now you were able to have these deeper level conversations, and he was able to also help you in that regard.
Yeah.
But it was reciprocal because he was also going through changing his career as well. And so you were
Yeah.
also in a position to now help him too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great. So talk about nutrition because here you went from like shakes and pills and being restrictive to now having what's called more food freedom, to then moving into, we worked on, being more intuitive eater. We also worked on from moving from weight loss because you had a 40-pound weight loss into maintenance because you're like, "Okay, let's work on this muscle building thing now." Talk about what you learned about nutrition or what you would share with women about that piece.
I think the biggest thing I learned, and I think one of the things that really helped, was just telling myself that I could eat something. Because I had gotten to a place where, like, before we started, where, oh, I can't have this. So you say no, 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 and then you go back later that night and eat all of it. And so I think really giving yourself that grace and compassion to say, no, like, you can eat these things. But then also, a big part for me was slowing down and being mindful. and then choosing to have the protein and have the vegetables and have the food that you like. I paid attention to how it made me feel. So that food made me feel better. So, you know what, I'm gonna enjoy a big salad with chicken and fats instead of sit there and go, oh, I'm like your thoughts around it being, oh, it's all I can eat. Well, no, I can also have the cookie after if I really want it, but this food makes me feel really good and my body feel good. And then if I still am hungry after, I can have the treat and have the things.
Yeah, and you loved salmon.
I love salmon. Oh my gosh.
So that was on a lot of her meals. So even I had to ask, are you still enjoying the salmon? So how did it work with you having two kids and a husband? Like, how did the cooking, the nutrition all work?
They're pretty good at they'll try new things and they'll have enjoy what I'm eating as well. My husband especially is just happy to eat whatever uh I have for him as long as there's no mushrooms. And so and the kids were always really good and really supportive. And sometimes if it was something they absolutely hated, then I like they can find themselves another snack and they can help figure themselves out. But I really appreciated with my kids, we talked a lot more about protein and about fiber, and we had different conversations around, you know, you're noticing your body's feeling this way. You know, why don't we try having some more fiber? Or you're still hungry, maybe eat a little bit more protein with this. Like, how can we help you without it being, you know, oh, you can't have the sugar or get like that restrictive piece, and it just being, okay, listen to your bodies, and your bodies are telling you that you're not maybe have. So there was a lot of better conversations. And then yeah, they've been enjoying the food. And again, it's all been food that I normally like, well, not normally, but like I was making, and like we've always, yeah, we've always eaten together when I make a meal
Yeah.
typically. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's important because some women say, like, I don't want to be cooking separate meals for my families, but you didn't. You
Right.
cooked the same meals,
No.
you just made tweaks when you needed to. But for the most part, it was like you guys were all eating because you weren't being restrictive with your food. You were
Yeah.
able to have a variety just like they were having a variety. So it meant that you didn't have to cook separate meals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, okay, so then what I want to jump forward to with in regards to nutrition before I move on is that, okay, so we were working on losing the weight, right? And eating. And so one, I don't think you felt hungry or had cravings. And if you had cravings, we were very good at like, okay, where's it coming from? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And what do you want to have? Let's go have it. Let's eat it slow. The rules were eat it slow, eat it mindfully. But
Yeah.
you go have it. And so, but then we transitioned into maintenance mode. And then it became
Yeah.
about we need to just eat a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
That was a hard one for you.
Yes, yes.
Do
It
you
was
want to talk
hard.
about that like that? Because a lot of women are very good at losing weight, but not as good at maintaining weight. And here I am
Yeah.
saying, well, you're gonna have to eat a little bit more now. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think there was some fear as to gaining it immediately back because I'd be eating more calories. So but the more I kept working through it and then working through that fear of it, but also recognizing that the scale was staying, like it was okay. So there, I was building evidence that it was okay to be eating these calories, and the goal was to maintain it. So again, in regards to the nutrition piece, like I felt a little full, so I definitely had to like be like learn to space it out in different places to either eat the right amount of calories and then find different systems that work for me in regards to like pre and post nutrition for my workouts. And then that helped balance that feeling of fullness. But again, a lot of it circled back to that mindset piece of working through that fear and then working through knowing it was going to be okay.
Yeah, because the first time we like you decided like, okay, I'm ready to like kind of build this muscle and I kind of ready to go into maintenance mode. We did it as like a short experiment because I knew that there was going to be mindset blocks. So we did it as a
Yeah.
little experiment. We put in a couple of parameters or what have you. And then I said the only rule was we couldn't jump on the scale until, 2 days later, or whatever. And we wanted to see what the weight did. And then from there, we were able to kind of maneuver things around so that they worked for you within. And then once we got through that hurdle, then we got to the place where, okay, now we can figure out. And I remember you saying like, I didn't think maintenance was going to be this hard. I thought,
Yeah.
and I remember thinking, well, of course, because you're used to dieting and then going back to eating what you normally did. And now here we are
Yeah.
saying, like, okay, well, there's a little bit of work that we got to figure out in order for you to go into maintenance mode. But once you're in maintenance mode, it's like, it should feel just as easy as it did in the weight loss, or just as, so just talk about like, how does it feel now being in maintenance mode?
It feels better. And it's less hard. I think a lot of it again kind of goes back to that fear of maybe losing the habits, but because I was able to do a lot of that work, and then I know too, if I get to a place where if I'm super concerned about how I'm eating one day, I can look back and review it. So again, we've put these really great tools in place for me where it's one day out of the whole week. So when I can kind of go back in and see things, how I've done, and then adjust the next day, and also to just really listening to my body.
Yeah, because I think that works well for you and would work well for a lot of women who have same like the mindset blocks or what have you, where it's like catastrophizing, oh, I blew this day. Whereas like, okay, we've developed this list of like, okay, now let's go from your emotional brain into your factional brain. What do the facts say that you are doing really well at so that you can get out of your emotional brain and then you can be like, see, you're lying, right? Or
Yeah.
or you're like, oh, dang, you're bang on. I haven't been nailing these things, right? So that's
Yeah.
kind of what we did. So what would be the biggest takeaway in terms of nutrition that you would give to a woman who felt like you did when we first started?
I think my favorite part has been that the mindful piece and really listening to my body, um, and just how much better you feel overall when you make the choices to eat the food that makes you feel good. So, and then the other thing would be, and it's your Thanksgiving video, and you wore like this bright blue shirt. I don't know why that's the part. It was from 2022, and man, I would just say go listen to that video, because I remember you saying like eat the foods that you love, and it just changed my whole perception of it. And when I go to eat food now, I'm like, you know what? I don't love this, so I'm not gonna keep eating it. Whereas before, you're just sitting there because you're just eating. So in regards to the nutrition, I would eat what you love and eat what makes you feel good, and your body feel good.
Yeah, I know that a woman listening to this would be, I do eat what I love and I'm not losing weight. And I gotta say, it's the mindful part because it's eating what you love.
Right.
Like if you're saying, hey, I really love potato chips every night at 11 o'clock, you gotta really ask
Right.
yourself, is it really love? And at the same time, well, there's something that's common between eating those foods. It's speed, right? Or it's mindlessness.
Yes.
So if we
Yeah.
factor those two in, because I've had clients who like they're like, I can't give this up. I love it so much. And then, they start to clean things up, they start to eat slow, and they're like, actually, I
Yeah.
don't love it as much as I thought. It's because we're
Yes.
constantly in a routine or a habit, and we're eating it so mindlessly. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's what I meant. You just say it so much better.
All right, with exercise, then it was like at first we just started with the walking, and it was
Yeah.
more of a stress relief. You were coming into times where there were emotional triggers that were happening, emotional times. And so, really, it was about okay, we need this as an outlet for you. And so that's where we started. And then we slowly transitioned into weights.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. It
wasn't
was,
fast.
no, it wasn't at all.
Yeah.
No. And I think like my first step target even was only like 7,000. Like, I don't know. It was, when you look at it now, it feels so like smaller than, yeah.
Yeah. So this was the evolution of exercise is we went from walking as a stress release to then we went, okay, stress release and now for weight loss, right? And
Yeah.
then we started kind of weightlifting and then we had a discussion about, well, is the weights you're using the right weights? Do we need more weights, right? And then you were like, yeah, you're right. And get into that. And then it was a combination, of hey, I want to do this 5K run. I've never ran in my life. So now we had to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? Learn to run 5K at the same time lift weights. And then somewhere along the lines, you then went 5K and you're like, I think I want to do a half marathon. I don't even know what I'm saying. I don't know if I'm drunk while I'm saying it, but you're like, I want to run a half marathon. And so now at this point, you're at 10 kilometers in and you just keep progressing. We've had to optimize your nutrition to give you more fuel for your longer runs and help you with your recovery afterwards. But that was kind
Yeah.
of the evolution over 8 months. It was kind of that
Yeah.
kind of like, no, I just want to start with walking. And then it was like, okay, I'll do this little thing. And then it was, okay, let's go heavier. And it was
Yeah.
like, boom, boom, boom. It was so. Talk about exercise in comparison to where you've been or where you at with things with exercise now.
So I remember very much at the beginning, I was like, no, I don't wanna exercise a whole lot because I didn't feel like I had enough time. I didn't feel like I had enough energy, and it just took everything in me to focus on what I was doing at the time, and which was the walking and the nutrition and mindset piece. So then, yeah, by the time I don't even think it was me that suggested that I start. I think you're like, so do you want to try it? And I was like, okay, I guess I can try it at this point. And I think the biggest piece for me was the discussion was like, okay, just do like, I think it was like 10 to 15 minutes, or it was 20, it was something manageable, not everything that I'm doing now. It wasn't this end goal. It was this little piece where it was like, okay, yeah, I can probably find 20 minutes. And so it wasn't half hour, it wasn't the
Yeah.
recommended whatever, there was nothing pressure about it. It was just go do 20 minutes. So then as I kept doing it, I kept feeling like, okay, yeah, I can keep doing this 20 minutes. And then I kept feeling stronger. And yeah, as I kept going, it just naturally felt like, yeah, okay, I could probably do a little more. And oh yeah. So it just naturally kept going. And then the running, I don't know.
It really did come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't know. You kept going, and there's just something about like at the end of it, like, and it felt harder than the weights in a way. Like the weights, I'm not as sweaty I as after I'm done running. And so I know I'm working hard with the weights too, but there's definitely lots of goals that I have there. But then once the warmer weather hit and I was like outside running, it's just been fun. And then again, I found an audio book. So as you get going, you're like, I don't know, you just kind of keep going. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I also remember. So Kristy had several trips that she took, several things which we're going to get into. But you had a family trip to Disney, so Florida and Disney.
yes,
It was before or after Christmas?
that one was like during Christmas.
Yeah, okay, and
We
then
didn't make it home. Yeah.
right, because of the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sent me a picture of her doing weights on the balcony overlooking the ocean.
Yeah.
just to rub it in there. And then I was
Yeah.
like, who are you? You're doing weights on the balcony. And she was kind of like, never would I thought that this would be me.
No, yeah, and I think that was one of my intentions I sat or set for that trip specifically was I wanted to work out. I wanted to take care of, I wanted to continue on what I was doing. And again, I set it small and I ended up hitting everything. And I totally went to like the gym at the one hotel and I was like, oh my gosh, like I would never have gone to the hotel gym because like that's just terrifying. And here I was, yeah, lifting these weights and just sticking to my workout and my plan. And so it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, and it wasn't that it took away from your vacation. You felt like you experienced your vacation. It was something you actually looked forward to and wanted to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on to like stress because there were some stress triggers along the way. So even just like I mentioned, hey, the December trip, right?
Yeah.
You had a triggering month that brings up a lot of emotions. Then you had a January trip where you and your husband took off for a bit. Then your husband started a new business and you
Yeah.
joined him in that venture. And then your daughter is in competitive dance as well. So that meant weekends away for dance competitions, early mornings, late nights, and that sort of thing. That wasn't
Yeah.
just all the stress. Then there was the mindset pieces, right? Where it was like we're working on that all or nothing thinking. We're working on naming our feelings. We're working on journaling, right? We're working on knowing our why we're eating, right? And those sorts of things. So stress was a big part
Yes.
of your overall
Yeah.
journey. And I always like to say like it's a toolbox or whatever. And it's like we're trying to put new tools in there so that our default isn't, screw it, I just blew this, I'm gonna give up, or it's like I'm gonna turn to food. So can you just talk about like it wasn't a smooth ride. It wasn't everything was perfect. You had all of these kind of changes in routine. You had emotional triggers that were happening. And then you had to,
Yeah.
at the same time, develop new skills at the same time to kind of cope with it. So just can you kind of give everybody a little bit of overview on that?
Yeah. I think for a lot of the trip pieces, anywhere that I could set an intention. So for the dance competitions, I set an intention before each one. And then during them, if I felt any stress or unease, I would just try to circle down to my minimum. So I was able to know what my minimum was to keep going. And then for me, for a lot of the emotional pieces, I really felt like I had to work on that self-compassion. So instead of trying to rush through them all, and when they were unexpected, I was able to um, give myself some self-compassion, go for my walk, do a journal, and step back and look at the overall pictures instead of dwelling or feeling like and like I still sat with it, but it was just that it was a pause instead of feeling like I had to get through it as quickly as possible. As you know, I wanted to,
You did.
but I think as they've kept coming, it's more, and it, that I think I've come to a realization of like they're always going to come. The stress is always going to be there. These emotional pieces are always going to be here. So I can choose to uh, throw my hands up and give up, or I can choose to just go down to my minimum, give myself some compassion, and then look for the next. Okay, what's the next step? When do I feel myself ready to come out of it? And it again, it just naturally happened. Like there was the one day with one of those triggers, and it just I remember being like, oh no, here we go again. Like I'm not going to be able to come out of this. It's gonna take me under. And then I think it was like maybe a day or two after, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's bring the dial back up where I can move forward.
Yeah. And you said that this year going through the emotional stuff, it was like hard, but it was like the year where you felt like you grew into it, or like you could let it go a little bit more, or you could be somebody different during those times.
Yes. Yeah.
Powerful because now you're not held as captive by the emotional triggers or stories. You're now into
Yes.
that growth phase. And it goes back to what you said about glasses, right? It's like now
Yeah.
a different pair of glasses as you navigate through them, and it's not holding you or suspending you from moving forward. What did you learn overall? Like, I think you've done a really great job of like sharing it so far, but like, what did you learn about yourself through all this?
Oh. Um, I think I would say that I maybe come to believe more about myself is that I am more resilient than I give myself credit for. And because I remember our first phone call and I was explaining all the things to you, and you said, "Wow, all I just hear is like you're super resilient." And I'm like, "What? Like that's ridiculous. Like I'm over here failing at life." And so yeah, I think it just that resilience and I even though I've tried different things for weight loss and I've worked on different things, sometimes I feel like you just keep getting knocked down, and I feel like no, I keep getting back up. So I just because again, it all keeps coming. It
Yeah.
doesn't stop. So yeah, so I think that would be what I
Yeah.
believe about myself.
And even like I hear from women, it's just not the right time. It's not, it's, like I have to rate. And it's just like, here you did a triggering month, 2 trips, starting a business, dance
Yeah.
competitions. It was like, what a better time to do it is to learn, okay, well, if this is always going to keep coming at me, if this is always going to be happening, then I got to figure out
Yes.
how to work with it. What do I do?
Yeah.
What kind of person do I want to be on vacation when I come home? You never came home gaining weight from a trip. That was the first time ever. You
Yeah.
came through your emotional trigger months not gaining weight. That was the first time ever. You started
Yeah.
a business, and even that, it was like, okay, we had to go through the mindset stuff, but it was like you kept your minimums all the way through. Like you showed up differently through all those things. And that's the value of not waiting until the perfect time.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. I'm so grateful that I learned how to do it during the things,
During the things. Yeah. All the things.
all the things.
What would you say to a woman who was feeling like you were feeling, like has like for you it was like you had really great success with the first diet. You tried to go back and it just wasn't working in the same way and you were feeling defeated. What would you say to that woman knowing what you know now?
I think I would say that, to give yourself some grace, to give yourself some compassion and look for those wins. Look for the wins in the day, because when you start counting those up, you see yourself differently, and it helps move you forward.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great advice. It's hard to see it sometimes in the moment when I say when you're on the struggle bus, it's really hard to step off the
Yeah.
struggle bus to see those, but that made a huge difference for you to reframe everything to get out of that all or nothing kind of mindset.
Yeah.
So those kind of tripwires that you were in, to be able to step out of those and be able to be like, actually, I'm doing a lot better than what I'm giving myself.
Yeah.
I'm just really hard on myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what would you say to a woman who was like, I'm doing everything in terms of nutrition, I'm exercising, and I'm not losing weight?
Um, I think I would maybe say two things. I'd say keep going, like keep moving forward. And then the second would be is to maybe just be honest with yourself and see if there's maybe more in the mindset, or if there's something else that's happening. Um, if it's something that you really want, because I think you really have to want it. But also change takes time. So I don't know that it's immediate. So
No.
patience, have some patience.
Yeah, well, we hit some of those spots where we needed to execute a bit of patience. You're like, it's not moving. And then you and I had to have a talk about, okay, let's figure out why it's not moving. And it wasn't to blame, it wasn't to do anything different. It was also just to bring awareness to be like, I just
Yes.
be patient here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it always worked out.
Yeah, it did. You are always right.
No, 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 I'm not. But in this case.
In this case.
Yeah. Is there any final words that you would say to women who are looking to feel and the way you're feeling now?
Yeah, I think one other thing I'd say is just I'm so grateful that I found Cindy and that I got some accountability because it really did, it helped so much with all the things that I had to struggle through. Like I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with you and to have been given that accountability and build these tools with someone who has always been on my side and who's always helped me through it. So yeah, I think it's a huge piece that I'm so grateful for.
Oh, I'm grateful. And I was just one, it was like you were open and honest, you were able to go to those vulnerable places, and so that's what made the difference. And two, it was like anytime I threw something at you, you were like, yeah, well, what's the harm in trying, right? I'm always telling my kids try, so I should at least try. And then we came back together to be like, did it work, did it not work, or whatever, and then figure out what to do. So that's what made the coaching experience on my end as a coach so great. There are two things that I want to ask before we end. Is one is I forget the first one, so I'll start with the second one until I remember.
Okay.
It is what makes you feel like this time you've got it?
It's another good one.
They don't
I,
stop.
they don't know ever. I feel like I've changed more of my identity than just my willpower and my motivation. I feel like I have made running and eating healthily and these habits that I've obtained a part of me. Like I feel like they're me now. Whereas before it felt like I had to do everything I could to to do an exercise or to go for the walk, where now it's like, oh, I need this walk and I want to do this workout and oh, I can't wait to run places. So I think, yeah, it's been a huge identity shift for me, um, compared to any other time before.
Yeah, I love that you pointed it out. It's not just what you're doing, it's who you are, right? It's kind of like when we see that 5 o'clock more like in the morning, you see that runner and you're like, how do they do it? And it's just like,
Yeah.
at first you think that you're so far off from that person. And 8 months ago, you would have thought there's no
I
way that
want.
you couldn't even envision that. And then you're like, the reason why that person can get up at 5 is because it's ingrained in who they are. It's just
Yes.
I see myself as loyal, as dedicated, as a good friend, a good partner, whatever. It's just as concrete as those things.
Yes. Yeah.
And it goes to show in 8 months, like you couldn't even envision yourself where you are now, and and that's why we do that future letter exercise. But it's like you couldn't even envision that you could get to this place. The second question that I remembered was that initially we just coached for 12 weeks and then you extended.
Yes.
Can you just kind of explain like why did you extend?
Um, I so there was a few different reasons. I extended because some of the trips and difficult parts I really wanted to coach. I wanted to build those tools with you. And I knew they were going to be tougher. So that was one of the reasons. And I think I mentioned this to you about the future letter. So at the end of it, at the end of the 12 weeks, I felt like, yeah, okay, maybe I can believe this about myself. And I was really starting to see that I could be someone else, but I really wanted to believe it fully. And at the end of the last the longer session, I think I said to you, wow, like I wrote this future letter and I'm like, yes, yeah, I got this. Like I believe these things. Whereas the first one, I was like, I'm writing this because this is what I want to believe. So I think I just really wanted to solidify, and I know enough about myself that I needed the extra time. But just the 12 weeks were also incredibly life-changing in that piece.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that's a great place to end because it's like, it just highlights like everybody's journey or evolution through a journey changes. And I love that, or is different. And then I love that you ended with that piece about identity because that's like the holy grail. That's kind of when you know it's going to stick. Like, you don't go from being loyal to unloyal, trusting to untrustworthy. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
no, if your value system is trusting, that you're a trusting person, then everything operates from that value. And so now that you're saying it's an identity, it's much like that, right? And one, that's what diets miss, but two, a lot of people just miss that that's the place. It's not
Yes.
getting to 50, like you've lost 40 pounds and a lot of inches. And when you see the before and after, it's incredible. That feels really great. That's not the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is that it's part of who I am now. And it feels like that. And I believe it to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing. I think your message is going to resonate with women 100%. And if it does, we would love to hear about it in the comments. So make sure you hit us down below. All right. Thanks, Kristy.
Thanks.